Dear friend, have you heard it yet? The sound of water echoing from somewhere, not from a well, not from a spring, but from within, as if within your heart there lies a flooded realm, quietly murmuring, not speaking, but far from silent. A liquid sound, slow, like an echo from prehistory. I am not speaking of the water beyond the forest, nor of the rivers marked on maps. I am speaking of the water that cannot be grasped, cannot be measured, yet flows through your life like a dream you don't recall, but feel damp in your heart upon waking. That water is the unconscious. In analytical psychology, water is the most ancient symbol of the unconscious primal, was the prelinguistic, just as the universe's genesis began with water. The human soul, in its journey of self-discovery, also begins with the sensation of being submerged in the unknown. But it is precisely there, where you are bewildered and trembling, that the threshold of transformation lies. Have you ever sat silently before a lake, doing nothing, thinking nothing, just being still, and suddenly noticing the water beginning to speak, not with words, not with ideas, but with a communication more primal, like moonlight falling into your eyes? I once wrote, "The path to the true self does not begin by climbing upward, but by diving downward." Diving where? Downward into the black, bottomless water of the unconscious. Not to drown, but to meet your primordial essence, the essence buried under layers of rational mud and societal norms. The water within you is calling, not with sound, but with thirst. You begin to feel it in recurring dreams of floods, of damp corridors, of a leaking roof. You don't understand why, but you sense something is finding its way back. Do not fear. When your soul begins to echo with the sound of water, that is the moment you step to the edge of the sacred forest, where individuation begins with a step inward. Do you dare approach the water's edge? You find yourself standing at the water's brink, but not a real shore. It is a dream. You don't recall it clearly, only that you were swept into a muddy current, lost in a flooded basement, or drifting on a river without banks. That feeling, both terrifying and alluring, as if your soul is leading you, without asking your permission. Dreams of water are not random. In countless analyses, water always appears when the human soul touches the threshold of the unconscious. It signals an inner movement, either imminent or denied. Water, as a substance of the spirit, washes away the persona, exposes the suppressed shadow, and sometimes even the forgotten light. Some dream of drowning. This is not a harbinger of physical death, but the cracking of the old ego structure. In fairy tales and myths, death in water often heralds rebirth, like Osiris dismembered in the Nile, or Okeanos, embracing all things back into the ocean's womb. Some dream of swimming underwater, yet needing no breath, as if they belong there. This is when they are entering a deeper layer of the unconscious, no longer resisting, but beginning to dissolve. This dissolution opens a primal sensation that I am not separate from the universe, but a part of it, like a drop within the ocean. You see, dreams do not speak in the language of logic, but in symbols, and in the symbol of water. They whisper, you are not only what you think you are something vaster, more ancient, floating among memories yet to be named. When you step into the water, you begin to melt away from assumed boundaries. That is when the process of individuation is born, when the ego ceases clinging to the shore and lets itself drift into essence. Have you ever woken and felt you were still drifting? When you drift through water dreams, perhaps you've seen a face, not distinct. It neither approaches nor recedes. Just a presence, a woman or a maiden, perhaps a mother but somehow stranger, perhaps a lover but ungraspable. And when you try to call out, she only smiles, then vanishes into the gently rippling water. I once wrote, the anima is the gateway to the other side of consciousness. She is not a real woman, but the embodiment of the feminine within a man's soul, a rejected part, yet one that quietly shapes emotions, imagination, and even destiny. Why does she hide in water? Because water is the domain of that inner feminine, where all boundaries dissolve. There, she sings with the voice of unformed memories, unrecognized desire, the fear of abandonment, and the longing for union. Like the mermaid in fairy tales, both alluring and dangerous, this figure draws us to the depths with a glance, a feeling, an unnameable lack. In Germanic myth, she is Lorelei, singing from a rock to lure sailors to their doom. In Celtic tradition, she is Melusine, the serpent woman of water, appearing only in baths, embodying both mystery and the mundane. In my patient's dreams, she rises from a pool at night, silent, only watching, and all will dissolve. Many men have loved the feminine without knowing. They chase her image through a woman, then despair when she is not the one from the water. She is no one else. She is the unconscious borrowing a feminine form to appear. When you seek her outside, you lose yourself. When you realize she is within, you begin the journey of integration. Remember, the feminine shadow in the soul can save or drown. She is the embodiment of unnamed emotions, of sadness from nowhere, of sudden passion, of the fierce urge to live amid a quiet life. When she appears in dreams, do not fear. Listen to her song. It is your own voice, filtered through mist and time. It is in this interplay between you and her, between conscious and unconscious, that the path of individuation continues. You cannot move forward without crossing the bridge she guards. And that bridge, as you've seen, is the still lake where she gazes at you from the other side. Do you dare step in? Let me guide you further, where water is no longer an image, but the movement of emotion, where dreams dissolve into tears. And the spiritual path begins with nameless drops. We will meet the symbol of water, not just the lake, but the rain, the ocean, melting ice, and explore the soul dissolving in the current of feeling. Water, when it falls from human eyes, is no longer mere water. It is the soul liquefied. Perhaps you've cried without knowing why. A scene, a word, soft as a breeze, an unnamed sorrow. Tears flow and you're bewildered. You ask, why am I crying? I have no reason. But the soul needs no reason to melt. It only needs truth. I have observed countless patients, men and women, who never dared shed a tear, fearing it was weakness. But when tears came, they fell silent. And in that silence, something opened like a dream's gateway. Tears are the breaking of the unconscious's dam. They carry not only present pain, but layers of sediment from unacknowledged emotions across lifetimes. In a single tear, there may be the father who never held his child. There may be the child in you still waiting for someone to return. There may be a feminine shadow never heard. In the Bible, it is said, the Lord keeps each of our tears in his bottle. A deeply symbolic image, tears as preserved soul. In alchemy, the process of dissolution. Dissolution is the first step of transformation. Without dissolution, there is no gold. Without tears, there is no liberation. The Eastern traditions call water the feminine element, soft, yet capable of piercing stone. A tear does not break the soul's foundation with force, but with permeation. I once recorded in my journal, after a dream, I wept, but not from pain, because my soul had just been cleansed of a piece of the past. Perhaps you felt this too. A dream that woke you in tears. A song, a glance, those floods of emotion do not destroy you. They are the past. We fear emotion because we fear dissolution. But that dissolution is necessary to birth a new form, just as water must fall to pool, must melt to seep into the earth, to sprout the tender roots of new life. Dear friend, if you have cried today, know that you are on the right path. Tears do not weaken you, they make you real. And when a tear falls, imagine it is the unconscious gently knocking at your soul's door, whispering, "Let me in." Where water is not just emotion, but ancient memory, where our ancestors were born from the sea. And the soul's evolution is a return to that primal source. There, water is the blood of life, is a symbol of the collective unconscious, a current beyond time. Have you ever listened to the waves, not with your ears, but with your soul? Have you ever stood by the sea and felt something strange, as if you'd been there before? Long before you were born, a feeling reason cannot describe a memory not yours, but of someone or something far greater than you. That is water when it becomes the blood of the collective unconscious. In humanity's dreams, water is always the beginning. The Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. In Genesis, in Egypt, Nun, the primal ocean, is where Atum, the creator God, was born. In the East, the Tao is water formless, unresisting, yet penetrating all things. And in the minds of primal peoples, the sea was not mere matter, it was mother. We were enveloped in water as embryos floating in amniotic fluid, where we knew no time, no self, only that we are that state. The ancients called Wu Wei, moderns call womb bliss. And I call it the state of non-separation between ego and the whole. From water we were born, and in the unconscious. We never forget this. Patients often tell me they dream of sinking into water or being swept away in a river. They fear they are drowning, but I know they are returning, for in water lies something reminiscent of a lost connection, a time when soul and world were not divided. When you dream of the ocean, it is not just the sea, it is your mother, your ancestors, the soul of the cosmos. It is the collective dream, a dream dreamed across thousands of generations. You cannot separate yourself from that current. Though you live amid concrete, eat from machines, speak in digits, the water still flows in your blood. Your tears, your dreams, it is the nameless hereditary memory, a kind of remembrance, not in the brain, but in the archetype. Freud called it primal vestiges. I call it eternal archetypes. And when you connect with water, you connect with the whole. Water does not only reflect emotion, it holds the history of the soul, an unbroken current from the dawn of the cosmos, through countless cycles of rebirth. To you, sitting here, reading these words, it carries ancient wisdom, the fear of death, the comfort of a mother's embrace, and the whispers of dreams you've never told. So, when you feel lost, severed from meaning, go to the water. Immerse yourself in the sea. Close your eyes under a shower. Or simply imagine a river flowing through your soul. That is not imagination. It is symbolic truth. A living truth in symbols. And thus, water brings you not only to yourself, but to us. In we as one body, as one ocean, where each individual is but a drop, and that drop is not lost when it falls into the sea. It is found. Dear friend, now you see, water is not just a dream, not just tears. It is the sacred bloodstream connecting you to the living cosmos. I will lead you further where water becomes the medium of spiritual transformation, as in rituals of purification. Christian baptism or dream journeys, there water is the threshold. Have you ever dreamed of falling into water? Not falling as an accident, but as a beginning? In countless dreams of patients, Easterners and Westerners, I see an unchanging motif. A person stands by the water's edge or is pulled down by an invisible force. They panic, struggle. Then suddenly silence, not because of death, but because of crossing a threshold. Water, as I've said, is the memory of the cosmos, but it is also the threshold of the soul. When you step into water, you step out of the old, what shaped you but no longer serves you. All the layers of persona, social masks, fear of rejection, the need for validation are washed away by water. Like an old coat left on the shore. In Christian ritual, baptism is the death of the old self to be reborn in Christ. This is not merely a religious act, but the most ancient symbol of separation and union. The human is submerged, so the soul can rise. And you see this in every tradition. In India, people bathe in the Ganges to cleanse karma. In Greek myth, souls must cross the river Lete, the river of forgetting to be reborn. In ancient tribal rituals, immersion in water marks transformation from youth to adult, from ordinary to one who knows the soul. Even in the therapy room, water becomes a ritual. I had a patient who dreamed of washing her hair with black water. She was terrified, thinking her head was being stained by something evil. But as we worked deeper, she realized it was washing away thoughts, not her own. Her father's voice, her mother's gaze, society's expectations. The black water became light, for it was her own light, not others. When someone dares to enter the water, they are ready to relinquish control. You cannot step into water and stay dry. You cannot step into the soul and remain unsoaked. And so in the ritual of water, whether in dreams or life, is always transformative. No one enters water and emerges the same. Even in alchemy, water is a stage of solutio, the dissolution of the ego, so unconscious elements can rise. Before reaching the lapis, the philosopher's stone, the alchemist must endure dissolution in the primal waters. And thus, water is not just a symbol, it is a living entity. It awaits you not to drown you, but to rebirth you. When life feels too narrow, when what was once safe becomes a prison, when something in you yearns to break free but doesn't know how, listen to the dream of water. It is an invitation, a risky one, but full of potential. In every myth, water is where gods are born, but also where monsters dwell. Just as in the unconscious, where shadow and light meet, do you dare step into the water? Not with your body, but with your soul? If you dare, follow me. Next, I will lead you to deeper waters, where you meet not only yourself, but the parts you've denied, forgotten emotions, suppressed instincts, strange images from childhood. There, water is no longer a ritual, it is a mirror. And in the water's mirror, the soul begins to speak. After you've seen yourself in the water's mirror, something inevitable happens. The image moves. It is no longer a reflection. It begins to rise from the water, emerging, breathing heavily, and asking you, can I live now? That is the shadow, the rejected part that saw you seeing it. And when your eyes meet, you can no longer turn away. That is when the whirlpool opens. I have witnessed many patients enter this state where dreams become intense. Blood, water, killing, or fleeing a wild beast. A man, a disciplined university professor, suddenly dreamed he became a wolf, tearing at his own hand. He woke, crying, not understanding what it meant. I said, that is the wild part, caged too long. It does not seek to destroy, but to be acknowledged. You see, the water begins to swirl when the ego resists. The ego has built a castle on dry sand, reason and social roles, personal achievements, but then one day a dream comes like a wave, shattering that structure, sweeping away all labels. You no longer know who you are. You only see the flood, and in it a figure swimming toward you, strangely shaped, half familiar, half foreign, as if both you and your enemy. That is the embodiment of the archetype. I call this moment inflation, when an image from the collective unconscious archetype overtakes the ego. One person suddenly acts like a tyrant, another falls into depression, another declares, I am enlightened. I see the ultimate truth. All are forms of rising water when energy from the depths floods consciousness, yet to be transformed. In Babylonian myth, the goddess Tiamat, primal water rises, roaring, birthing monsters to fight the new gods. In the Bible, the great flood wipes out humanity, leaving only Noah's Ark. In Taoism, water is the symbol of the Tao, but also an unstoppable force of destruction. If you do not flow with it, I once told a woman who dreamed of being swept into a whirlpool in the sea, you are resisting what is rising within. Let it pull you down and see what truly lives in those depths. This is the stage where many give up. They turn away from analysis, abandon therapy, or escape into religion is work, or addiction. But in truth, if you dare let go and let yourself be swept away, you will not die. You will be reborn. I call this moment the death of the old ego. And like Hermes guiding souls across the river Styx, the analyst or the awakened part of you will hold the torch, lighting the way through chaos. You will see images invert, your father crying, your mother screaming, the child. You were raging and calling for help. You will hear the shadows cry, let me live, but you will ask, how do I avoid being swallowed? The answer is not in books, but in your intuition. Through images, dreams, the pain in your heart, each time you deny a true part of yourself. I often remind, do not try to control the water. Learn to breathe in it. You will no longer be the observer of the shadow, nor the one swept away by it. You will begin for the first time to converse with it, no longer through symbols, but in clear language, as if sitting across from another part of yourself. That is the moment when water after flooding becomes a sacred well. Are you ready to hear the shadow speak in words? After the flood sweeps everything away, you open your eyes and find yourself sitting by a well. No more roaring, no more whirlwinds, just an uncanny stillness. You look down and the well's depths reflect your face, not distorted as in moving water, but clear as the moon on a lake. Suddenly, from the water's depths. Our voice echoes, not distinct, but you recognize it. It is your voice at 7 years old, crying in a dark room as your parents fought. It is your voice at 13, hiding your first poem for fear of ridicule. It is the call of the part you buried alive because the world said, "Don't dream, be realistic." And I call the sacred well, the place that holds all we forget but never vanishes. Undigested memories, they do not die. They lie in deep water. They wait for someone to listen, and that someone is you. I once recorded in a dream of my own. I descended a spiraling staircase, leading to a basement, then a deeper basement, until I stood before an ancient well. From it, I understood that my soul has the depth of a buried city. Then, when you begin to listen to the shadow, it no longer demands control, no longer rages as before. It only needs to be spoken. It needs language, for what cannot be spoken becomes symptoms. Pain, depression, or escape. You begin to write or speak what you once denied. I was jealous. I was selfish. I wanted to be loved. I hate having to be strong all my life. Words that seem shameful are the gateway to truth. In analysis, I often encourage patients to dialogue with their shadow through letters writing to it and letting it write back. One woman sent me a letter from her shadow, a 10-year-old girl, angry, lonely, saying, "I just want you to hear me, don't lock me away anymore." No. From that sacred well, you begin to see fragments of the past rise like rotted diaries, like drifting masks. You realize many of your choices were not from freedom, but from unheeded wounds. You didn't choose this career from passion, but because your father said, "Art is useless." You don't smile from joy, but because, as a child, you learn smiles are a shield, so no one sees your weakness. But in realizing, you begin to find freedom. When the water clears, you see the sky reflected in its depths. I call this the moment when unconscious and conscious merge, when the inner world is no longer severed from the outer, when darkness is no longer an enemy, but a storyteller. I do not say the journey ends here, but now you are no longer alone. The shadow no longer screams. It whispers, and you listen. We will see something miraculous happen, that, well, if you keep returning, becomes not only a place of pain, but a source of living water. You will see another figure begins to emerge from the depths. The guide, the archetype of the self, the image of wholeness. And when you see that darkness too has a voice, you are ready to meet the light you never dared face, the light of your own being.